Welcome to our journey through the world of science myths. Every day we encounter ideas that sound scientific but are actually misconceptions. In this video we'll explore some of the most common myths, explain why they persist, and reveal the real science behind them. Our goal is to help you separate fact from fiction so you can better understand the world around you. Whether you're a science enthusiast or just curious, you'll find these revelations both surprising and enlightening. Let's dive in and start debunking. Science myths often stick around because they're easy to remember, sound logical, or have been repeated for generations. Sometimes they arise from outdated information or misunderstandings of scientific principles. Media, movies, and even textbooks can unintentionally spread these myths. By understanding why these misconceptions persist, we can become more critical thinkers and better consumers of information. Let's look at some examples and see how these myths take root in our mind. One of the most popular science myths is that humans use only 10% of their brains. This idea has been featured in movies and books, but it's simply not true. Brain imaging studies show that we use virtually every part of our brain even when we're resting or sleeping. Different tasks activate different regions, but no area is completely inactive. This myth likely persists because it suggests untapped potential, but the reality is our brains are always at work. You may have heard that lightning never strikes the same place twice. In reality, lightning can and does strike the same spot multiple times, especially tall structures like skyscrapers or trees. The Empire State Building, for example, is struck by lightning dozens of times each year. This myth likely comes from the rarity of being struck, but the science shows that lightning follows the path of least resistance, which can be the same place repeatedly. Many parents believe that sugar makes children hyperactive. However, scientific studies have found no consistent link between sugar consumption and hyperactivity in kids. The excitement often comes from the environment, such as parties or special occasions, rather than the sugar itself. This myth persists because of confirmation bias. Parents notice hyperactivity after sugar and make the connection, even if it's not supported by science. It's a common belief that goldfish have a memory span of just 3 seconds. In fact, goldfish can remember things for months. They can be trained to respond to signals and even recognize their owners. This myth likely started as a way to justify small tanks, but science shows that goldfish are much smarter than we give them credit for. Many people warn that cracking your knuckles will lead to arthritis. However, research has shown no connection between knuckle cracking and arthritis. The sound comes from bubbles popping in the joint fluid, not from bones grinding together. While excessive cracking might cause minor hand swelling, it doesn't increase arthritis risk. This is a great example of a myth that sounds plausible but isn't supported by evidence. Phrase "blind as a bat" is misleading. Bats are not blind. In fact, many species have excellent vision, especially at night. They also use echolocation to navigate and hunt, which is a sophisticated biological sonar. This myth likely comes from their nocturnal habits, but bats rely on both sight and sound to survive. One of the most harmful science myths is the belief that vaccines cause autism. This idea originated from a discredited study and has been thoroughly debunked by extensive research. Vaccines are safe and effective, protecting us from serious diseases. Spreading this myth can lead to lower vaccination rates and outbreaks of preventable illnesses. Trust in science and the overwhelming evidence supporting vaccine safety. It's often said that hair and nails continue to grow after death. In reality, what happens is the skin dehydrates and retracts, making hair and nails appear longer. There is no actual growth after death. This myth persists because of how bodies change post-mortem, but the science is clear: growth stops when life ends. Many believe the Great Wall of China is visible from space with the naked eye. In truth, it's very difficult to see without aid, as it's narrow and blends with the landscape. Astronauts report that it's no more visible than other man-made structures. This myth likely persists because of the wall's impressive reputation, but the science of visibility from space tells a different story. Common misconception is that seasons are caused by how close Earth is to the sun. Actually, seasons result from the tilt of Earth's axis, not its distance from the sun. When one hemisphere tilts toward the sun, it experiences summer while the other has winter. This myth is understandable, but the science of axial tilt explains the real reason for seasonal changes. The image of ostriches burying their heads in the sand is iconic, but it's not true. Ostriches may lower their heads to the ground to turn eggs or look for food, but they don't bury them to hide. This myth likely comes from their defensive posture, which can look like head burying from a distance. In reality, ostriches rely on running and kicking to escape danger. Many people believe that shaving causes hair to grow back thicker or darker. In reality, shaving only cuts hair at the surface, giving it a blunt tip that may feel coarser. The hair's thickness, color, and growth rate are determined by genetics, not shaving. This myth persists because of the way regrowing hair feels, but science shows shaving has no effect on hair properties. It's often said that swallowed gum stays in your stomach for 7 years. In reality, while gum is not digestible, it passes through your digestive system and exits the body like other waste. There's no evidence that gum sticks around for years. This myth likely started as a way to discourage swallowing gum, but the science is clear: it doesn't linger. A widespread myth is that touching toads gives you warts. Warts are caused by human viruses, not by toads or frogs. The bumpy skin of toads may look like warts, but it's not contagious. This myth likely comes from the toad's appearance, but science shows there's no risk of catching warts from these animals. It's a common belief that bulls become angry at the color red. In fact, bulls are colorblind to red. What actually provokes them is the movement of the matador's cape, not its color. This myth likely comes from bullfighting traditions, but science shows that bulls react to motion, not color. creepy myth claims that people swallow several spiders a year while sleeping. There's no scientific evidence to support this. Spiders tend to avoid humans, and the conditions needed for this to happen are extremely unlikely. This myth likely spread because it's memorable and unsettling, but science shows it's just not true. Another version of the Great Wall myth is that it's visible from the moon. In reality, no man-made structure is visible from the moon with the naked eye. The distance is simply too great and the wall is too narrow. This myth likely persists because of the wall's fame, but astronauts confirm it's not visible from that far away. It's often said that most body heat is lost through the head. In reality, heat loss depends on which parts of the body are exposed. If you're bundled up except for your head, you'll lose more heat there, but it's not unique. Any uncovered part of the body will lose heat. This myth likely comes from old military studies, but modern science shows heat loss is proportional to exposure. Many believe that drinking alcohol warms you up. While alcohol can make you feel warmer by dilating blood vessels, it actually causes your body to lose heat faster. This can be dangerous in cold environments. The warming sensation is misleading, and science shows that alcohol increases the risk of hypothermia. It's commonly believed that pure water conducts electricity. In fact, pure water is a poor conductor. It's the minerals and impurities in water that allow electricity to flow. This myth persists because most water we encounter isn't pure. Understanding the science behind conductivity helps us stay safe around electricity and water. Many think Mount Everest is the closest point on Earth to space. However, due to the Earth's equatorial bulge, the peak of Mount Chimborazo in Ecuador is actually closer to space than Everest. This is because the Earth isn't a perfect sphere. Science helps us understand these geographical facts and corrects our misconceptions. It's a common belief that bananas grow on trees. In reality, bananas grow on large herbaceous plants, not trees. The structure looks like a tree, but it's technically a giant stem. This myth likely comes from the plant's appearance, but botany tells a different story. Many believe that eating sugar directly causes diabetes. While excessive sugar intake can contribute to obesity, which is a risk factor for type 2 diabetes, sugar alone doesn't cause the disease. Genetics, lifestyle, and overall diet play bigger roles. This myth oversimplifies a complex condition, but science provides a clearer picture. We're often taught that humans have 5 senses: sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch. In reality, scientists recognize many more senses such as balance, temperature, pain, and body position. Our understanding of the senses has grown, showing that the human body is even more complex than once thought. Common misconception is that antibiotics can treat viral infections like the common cold or flu. Antibiotics only work against bacteria, not viruses. Misusing antibiotics can lead to resistance, making bacterial infections harder to treat. Understanding this distinction is crucial for public health and effective treatment. People often talk about the dark side of the moon, but every part of the moon gets sunlight at some point. The term refers to the far side, which we can't see from Earth, not a side that's always dark. Science helps clarify these astronomical terms and dispel the myth. Some claim that evolution is just a theory, implying it's a guess. In science, a theory is a well-supported explanation based on evidence. Evolution is supported by mountains of data from genetics, fossils, and observations. Understanding the scientific meaning of theory helps us appreciate the strength of evolutionary science. As we've seen, many science myths persist because they're easy to believe or have been repeated for years. By questioning what we hear and seeking evidence, we can avoid falling for misconceptions. Science is a process of discovery, always refining our understanding of the world. Let's continue to challenge myths, embrace curiosity, and rely on evidence to guide our beliefs. Thanks for joining us on this myth-busting journey.